Thank you, Margaret. Let us now share screen. Jewish meditation. Okay, welcome, welcome, welcome to one and all. On our birthday, the first class that we held was on October 18th, 2020. So we've completed a year. Congratulations to everybody. I love this class, and I'm so appreciative that you guys keep coming. Spread the word. We'll get more people involved, but this is, as you can see at this point, this is such important information. Rabbi Kaplan has done such a stupendous job of presenting teachings about Judaism from a spiritual point of view and stressing how we are meditators 24/7, 365. And we take such a meditative approach, a consciousness raising approach to Torah living. And you can see how we've been lacking in that in mainstream Jewish living. And so I feel that it's so important that we keep up this work so that we can each incorporate more spirituality, real stuff, into our living and reclaim our spiritual / mystical / consciousness raising heritage. That's what this is doing. We are on a mission from God, as they say in the Blues Brothers. Okay, we're going to start contemplation meditation today, which is chock full of good stuff, and it's easy to use but very powerful. And we're also going to continue our study of mindfulness. And again, I think there's a very distinct Jewish parallel to this, which I'm not going to identify yet. I want to see if we can back into it. Over the next few weeks, we'll be discussing mindfulness, and I'm going to see if anybody comes up with it. It's extraordinary. The parallel is extraordinary. Okay. We've covered 1, 2, 3, 4 already. Amidah, Bodhidut, Ruach HaKodesh, and Mantra meditation. 4 different meditative disciplines. We're on our 5th, contemplation, and upcoming. We have visualization and unification, blessing power. There's so many different meditative methodologies in traditional Jewish living. It's wonderful. Up to mantra meditation. Okay. I'm going to go over something called what I call the refresh a little bit later. Let's start contemplation meditation with Rabbi Kaplan. What does he say? This is what he says. Another simple type of meditation is contemplation. I, meaning Rabbi Kaplan, has discussed this form of meditation in a previous chapter in the context of Hitbodedut, but here I shall discuss it in further detail and in practical terms. Contemplation consists in sitting and concentrating on an object, word, or idea, letting it fill the entire mind. This is an excellent introductory meditation insofar as it does not require any background in meditation or any advanced knowledge of Hebrew or Judaism. The techniques are the same as those of mantra meditation, except that the experience is visual rather than verbal. I will add that for my last SASH test under Sifu, I had to learn this contemplation meditation. It was called flower meditation, and you were contemplating on a flower. We took it past that, where you had to visualize the flower, which is what we're going to get to in our next segment. But just to point out that how much similarity there is in different cultures when it comes to meditation. Simple contemplation consists of gazing at an object for a fixed period of time. As in all forms of meditation, one should be as comfortable as possible. There is no need to avoid blinking the eyes, since this can lead to discomfort. Rather, one should sit and gaze at the object of contemplation in the most relaxed manner possible, just as we do when we do our focal point meditation. When we're focusing on the breath, you're in the same posture. You're relaxed but structured. And now you're focusing on something visually. The object of contemplation can be almost anything: a pretty stone, a leaf, a flower, or written material. It could be a flame. People do this on a candle. Pictures, images, and statues, however, are to be avoided, since contemplating them is dangerously close to idolatry. Yeah, okay. You don't contemplate on a picture of the Rabbi, for example. Okay. Which is interesting, putting that aside for a second. This is a form of meditation that can take place in public. Let's say you're on a bus, or let's say that you're on a train, or let's say you're a passenger in a car and there's moments of silence. You can pick an object and just focus on it. You're meditating, but your eyes are still open, so you can retain your awareness of your surroundings. But there you go. As in the case of mantra meditation, one should sit quietly in the meditation place. You have a place for this, adjusting to the space. The meditation itself should take between 20 and 30 minutes. 30 minutes is a usual measure of time for these forms of meditation. And guess what? You should do it consistently. And you know why? It's because the effect of it builds. After the meditation, one should remain still for 5 to 10 minutes, absorbing the effects of the exercise. Visual contemplation is valuable in many respects. I have spoken earlier of visualization, in which one creates images in the mind's eye, which we'll be getting into. Contemplation is a very good introduction to this practice. Once a person has learned to look at an object correctly, he can also learn to control his vision. Contemplation engraves the image in the mind's eye, and this image can be conjured up even when the object is not present. That's why these are companions. With the visual contemplation, you form like a recording of what that, let's say it's a flower, what the flower looks like. And now you've got it in your archive. So then when you get to the next stage that we'll be discussing, which is the visualization, you recall that recording, that image that you have, and then you can play with it a little bit. You can begin by using the object of contemplation as a focus for unstructured meditation. This would mean gazing at the object while letting the mind drift off in any direction it desires. The contemplation focuses the mind, but thought is left unbridled. You can think about how to restructure your life, about the meaning of life, or about any other subject important to you. Rather than being the goal of meditation, contemplation is an adjunct to a meaningful, unstructured meditation. As one becomes more advanced, one gradually learns how to fill the mind with the visual image of the object of contemplation, banishing all other thought. This is very much like mantra meditation, except that instead of filling the mind with a word or phrase, it is filled with an image. Extraneous thoughts are also shunted aside in a similar manner. Whenever a thought enters the mind, it is gently pushed aside, leaving the entire attention fixed on the object of contemplation. So what he's saying is you have a visual image. Again, let's say it's a flower. You put a flower in a vase and it's in front of you. In the beginning, you let your mind roam. And just as we do with our meditation at the class, go back to the focal point, go back to the focal point. You let it roam. You go back to the focal point, go back to the flower, go back to the flower. Eventually, you sharpen your focus, and you want to keep the flower in your focal point. Focus on the flower, and not pay attention to the other thoughts. You let them go, just as we do with our regular meditation, except in this time, instead of focusing on the breath coming in and out of the nostrils, you're focusing on a flower. With mantra meditation, we were focusing on a phrase, Ribbona Shalom, Ribbona Shalom, Ribbona Shalom. And similarly, we were just going back to Ribbona Shalom, getting distracted, going back, getting distracted, going back, getting distracted, going back, till finally you get stronger and you just be able to focus on Ribbona Shalom and let the other stuff pass. So whether you're focusing on the breath going in and out of the nostrils, or a flower, visual contemplation, or mantra meditation with a word or phrase, it's the same process. And the more you do it, the more consistent you do with your practice, you get with your practice, the more you'll be able to just focus on the focal point. So what's nice about this is that we have several tools in our toolbox of various forms of meditation. We can do this in public. We can focus on something. You can be sitting in a restaurant. You can be sitting in a park, and you're going to focus on a tree or a flower, whatever it is. And you see, the point is that we're building the same skills in all these three types to be able to retain our focus on the object, the breath or the flower or the mantra, same skills. And under the heading of gaining control over what our mind is doing. At first, one must make a conscious effort to rid the mind of extraneous thoughts. However, after a while, the object of contemplation becomes the total center of one's focus, and everything else seems to vanish. The experience of looking at the object becomes highly intensified. It is as if there were nothing else in the entire world besides the meditator and the object of contemplation. When one reaches this state, every detail of the object assumes an importance of its own. Thus, for example, if one were contemplating a leaf, every line and vein on it would take on major significance. One would see structure and patterns to which the mind would normally be oblivious. Every detail would become deeply engraved in one's consciousness. So here's the added perk of a visual contemplation. Let's suppose again you took the flower. So you're training yourself to be able to concentrate just on the flower. And after a while, because your power of concentration is stronger, all the other fluff in your mind gets, you don't pay attention to it. And all that's there is the flower. And like, wow, I never noticed this about the flower. It becomes interesting and beautiful, and you see the detail. That's a great thing. Your experience of the world at that point becomes enhanced because you're appreciating a flower like you never did before. That's a perk ahead of, let's say, the breathing meditation, because it's the breath. Okay, but here we got a flower to appreciate here. And just as we said earlier with, like last week about mantra meditation, if you choose a specific phrase that has meaning, the more you're able to focus on that mantra, the more it affects you subconsciously. So to say something like Ribbona Shalom, it's like your appreciation of the master of the universe becomes enhanced because those words have meaning. And similarly with a flower, with visual contemplation, the stronger, the better you are at just having that in your focus, the more you're really going to appreciate the flower. There is great leeway in what can be used as an object of meditation. If desired, a different object can be used at each session. This is of necessity true if the object of contemplation is something perishable, such as a leaf or a flower. However, when a different object is used each time, the effects are not cumulative. That's exactly right. That's the downside of using flowers. Which is why some people use flames, candle flames. It is therefore best to use the same object for a relatively long period of time. If possible, the object should remain the same for 30 to 40 days, long enough to habituate to it. Then the experience of each session is reinforced, and each day's experience builds on that of the previous days. Very important point. Cumulative effect. It is important, however, to realize that the object of contemplation is merely an aid and not an end in itself. One must be extremely careful not to make the object of contemplation into an object of devotion, since to do so would border on idolatry. Even when one becomes aware of the divine in the object, which again, I don't know, I don't understand, it may not be made into a venerated object or an object of devotion. Since there is always a danger, it is best to limit oneself to types of contemplation actually mentioned in classical Judaic literature. People sometimes ask if one can only do one type of meditation, whether one should begin with mantra meditation or with contemplation. To a large degree, this is a matter of personal preference. Some people are more verbal, while others are more visually oriented. For one who is verbal, mantra meditation will work more effectively, while one who is more visually oriented may find it easier to fill the mind with visual contemplation. Of course, if a person has a spiritual master who knows his soul and psyche, then the master can help him to make the decision. It would be nice to have that. However, both mantra meditation and contemplation are meant to develop different areas of the mind and spirit. Therefore, both are important. There are also important meditations that involve the senses of the body, like meditation over besamim, over spices. For beginners, however, mantra meditation usually seems the simplest. Some people find it valuable to combine mantra meditation with contemplation. If a person has learned to focus his mind through mantra meditation, then he can also use this method to enhance his contemplation. It is very easy to fill the mind with a visual image when one is in a higher state of consciousness from mantra meditation. In this sense, mantra meditation can be seen as an excellent introduction to contemplation. That's really key. That's very good advice. So, like, I personally still have trouble visualizing. It's hard work. So what he's suggesting is, Jews are very verbal. We're always saying words, brachot and tefillot and learning and everything else. So, and shirim and whatever. So you start off with mantra meditation, and you start off with saying whatever word or phrase you're going to say, and that has settled you into a state of mind where you're meditative, where you're ready to be able to focus and concentrate. You're focusing and concentrating originally on a phrase or a word. Okay, you do that for whatever, 15 or 20 minutes, and then now you're kind of primed at the pump. So then you go to a visual object. Maybe it's the flower, whatever it be, or a candle. Now it's going to be easier for you to focus on that image because you've kind of given yourself some preconditioning. You've warmed up. Furthermore, as we have seen, the most universal Jewish mantra is the expression Ribono Shel Olam, Master of the Universe. This mantra does not negate physical reality, but focuses our attention on the physical universe and makes us aware of its master. Thus, this mantra is an excellent way of relating the visible world to its creator. So subconsciously, you're priming yourself to focus on the physical world, because the phrase Ribono Shel Olam is supposed to remind you and reinforce subconsciously that we're talking about the creator and master of this world we're in with the objects that we're looking at. So that's the power of the subconscious meaning of that phrase. There is a vast difference between the English concept of universe and the Hebrew concept. Let me just get over here. I exceeded where I was going to prepare. That's good though. Okay. No problems. Okay. There is a vast difference between the English concept of universe and the Hebrew concept. In English, the word universe comes from the Latin unus, meaning one, and versum, meaning to turn. Hence, universe denotes that which is turned into one, or that which is combined into an integral whole. Thus, in the secular sense, the universe is seen as the main unifying factor in creation. I never thought of it that way, but that's what he's saying when he parses the meaning of the words. He's basically saying the universe is when we say universe, we mean the unifying force of the physical world, of the physical reality. But the Hebrew word for universe, on the other hand, is olam, which is derived from the root alam, meaning to conceal. Therefore, in a Hebrew sense, the universe is seen as that which conceals the divine, because that's the unifying factor. Thus, when one says Ribono Shel Olam, denoting master of the universe, one is saying that concealed behind the universe, there is a master. Thus, in repeating this mantra, one is making oneself aware of the hidden reality behind the visible one. So it refers us to God, and olam meaning that which shields us from God, and subconsciously we understand that we're connecting to God in that way. Okay. He continues with Ribono Shel Olam, which we're going to continue next week. Now, I'm going to bring up a form of meditation which I put together, which I was asked about, which I call it the refresh. It's my name. There's nothing new under the sun. I'm sure that right now 1 million people are doing it. There's a little bit of Matt Fury in there. Matt Fury is a world-renowned trainer and teacher about growth. There's some Bhante in there. And it's a meditation used to regain emotional equilibrium. And you could be out of balance emotionally because of a trauma, an incident. You could be out of emotional equilibrium because of a chronic condition, because of what's going on. I was doing this when the COVID bioweapon hit last year, and I was out and about, and I was doing this every day. And it really flushes you and restores your equilibrium, and it's so simple. And this is what it is. And again, I'm calling it the refresher. You can call it whatever you want. It's just very simple. Put an ER in there. And this is what you do. It's done standing. You are standing, and you're standing straight, and you're standing still. And what you're doing is you are going to walk backwards. But you are going to walk at a pace slower than you could ever imagine. You are going to go toe to heel, pause, toe to heel, pause. And when I say pause, you're not stopping, you're moving. Your left foot's going down, toe to heel. Then your right foot's going down. You're going so slow, slower than you can imagine, as slow as you can without getting distracted, without stopping. And to top it off, your eyes are closed. Now, the eyes closed depends on place. You do not want to be walking into your bed or falling over chairs, whatever it is. If you have a backyard, that's an ideal place. You're kind of familiar with the backyard. I do this sometimes in an industrial park around the corner on it, like during the weekend when there's no traffic in there, and it's a big enough space where I know I'm not going to hit anything and I'm not going to get hit by a car, and I trust the area. I mean, there's very rarely people where I go. You always got to keep your senses about, and you don't want to get attacked or anything, but I'm not terribly concerned about that in this area. But you don't have to close your eyes, but if you close your eyes, it's an added enhancement. So what does this do? First of all, the slow walking makes you very mindful and calms your mind, because all you're focusing on is what your feet are doing, and what your toes are doing, then what your heels are doing, and what the toe is doing, what the heel is doing. It's like your breath, but it's almost easier sometimes to focus on what your feet are doing than the breath coming out of your nostril. It's pretty easy to focus on what your feet are doing. So you're cleansing your mind. You're not paying attention to the stuff that's racing in your mind because you're focusing on your feet. The fact that you're doing this backwards is a neurological flush. Believe it or not, the fact you're forcing your body to do something that's extraordinary, because you don't do this all the time, and your body is making a neurological adjustment, and that is kind of like flushing out emotions. That's how that works. So that another example of this is, like in martial arts or dance, or I'm sure many physical arts, you get used to doing something one way, and then you just do it the opposite way with the other hand or whatever it is, with the other leg. And you're making your nervous system say, wait a minute, pay attention. It's not in a lull. It's maybe you got a little bit used to it. Maybe it's a little bit on edge. But the fact that you're forcing it to do things in an opposite manner is waking it up and getting it to attention. And by doing so, it's ridding itself of any emotional garbage that it's been storing. The simple act of walking backwards does that. And I will tell you from experience, it works profoundly quickly. When I say quickly, you do this for 5 minutes. And if you're in a basement or a living room, whatever it is, 5 minutes of doing this, you don't cover a lot of territory because you're going very slowly. But 5 minutes goes a long way. All right, so again, you start out standing. You then start walking backwards. It's got to be done backwards. So you got to find a space that you're safe and comfortable in to walk backwards, like a backyard, whatever it is. And you're walking very, very, very slowly. And optimally, your eyes are closed if you can manage that in the space you're in, but it's not necessary, but it's optimal. If your eyes are closed, then the whole experience is enhanced. The slowness is enhanced. The mindfulness of your feet is enhanced. It's really something. So the next time you're all revved because of whatever, or you're down, whatever the emotional thing is, you do this, and it will make a major difference. It will restore your equilibrium. And I tell you that from pure experience, having done it a lot of times. The refresher. And again, nothing new. I'm sure right now there's 1 million people on the planet doing it as we speak. Okay, let's see what Bhante has to say about mindfulness. Characteristics of mindfulness. Mindfulness is mirror thought. It reflects only what is presently happening and exactly the way it is happening. There are no biases. Mindfulness is non-judgmental observation. It is that ability of the mind to observe without criticism. With this ability, one sees things without condemnation or judgment. One is surprised by nothing. One simply takes a balanced interest in things exactly as they are in their natural states. One does not decide and does not judge. One just observes. Please note that when we say one does not decide and does not judge, what we mean is that the meditator observes experiences very much like a scientist observing an object under a microscope without any preconceived notions, only to see the object exactly as it is. In the same way, the meditator notices impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, and selflessness. So what he's saying is, as we've discussed, so we're meditating and you're agitated, and I was like, oh, that's me being agitated. Oh, that's me noticing that I'm being agitated. You're just, oh, okay. The good, the bad, and the ugly are all welcomed and accepted. It is psychologically impossible for us to objectively observe what is going on within us if we do not at the same time accept the occurrences of our various states of mind. So if you're going to be mindful, you do not say, I'm only going to look at myself and pay attention to the good stuff. All the bad thoughts or the bad feelings I have or the self-loathing, self-this, I'm not going to pay attention. You're not being mindful. You are doing what he says is you are looking at yourself with bias. That's not being mindful. If you're mindful, you're saying, oh, that's me. Oh, yeah, that's me too. But that's me, and that's me. It is, right. It is psychologically impossible for us to objectively observe what is going on within us if we do not at the same time accept the occurrences of our states of mind. This is especially true with unpleasant states of mind. This is where the rubber hits the road. Can you accept and notice and pay attention to the bad stuff too? In order to observe our own fear, we must accept the fact that we are afraid. We can't examine our own depression without accepting it fully. The same is true for irritation and agitation, frustration, and all those other uncomfortable emotional states. You can't examine something fully if you are busy rejecting its existence. Whatever experience we may be having, mindfulness just accepts it. It is simply another of life's occurrences, just another thing to be aware of. No pride, no shame, nothing personal at stake. What is there is there. And I would say, we attribute to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, God, mindfulness. We say God is omniscient. We say God knows. God knows. Nothing is hidden from God. We're doing the same thing, but nothing is hidden from us. We're not going to hide the fact that we're depressed or angry, agitated. Oh, we're aware of it. Yep, I accept that. So as far as I understand it, you really can't understand what we say, what we mean when we say God is omniscient and God knows your thoughts, unless you know your thoughts. Like, oh, so that's what God's doing, only on the God scale. I'm acknowledging the good, the bad, and the ugly. That's what God's doing. That's what we say God does. I'm doing it too. Therefore, you understand better your relationship with God and what he does, because you're doing it. Mindfulness is an impartial watchfulness. It does not take sides. It does not get hung up in what is perceived. It just perceives. Mindfulness does not get infatuated with the good mental states. It does not try to sidestep the bad mental states. There is no clinging to the pleasant, no fleeing from the unpleasant. Mindfulness treats all experiences equally, all thoughts equally, all feelings equally. Nothing is suppressed, nothing is repressed. Mindfulness does not play favorites. So this is, it must be noted, this is very different than positive thinking, all the self-programming we have to do, giving ourselves the right thoughts to think, giving ourselves the right narrative. That's all separate work. Okay, becoming mindful is the root of that. Becoming mindful is you just are able to deal and accept whatever pops up. Mindfulness is non-conceptual awareness. Another English term is bare attention. It is not thinking. It does not get involved with thoughts or concepts. It does not get hung up on ideas or opinions or memories. It just looks. Mindfulness registers experiences, but it does not compare them. It does not label them or categorize them. It just observes everything as if it was occurring for the first time. It is not analysis that is based on reflection and memory. It is rather the direct and immediate experiencing of whatever is happening without the medium of thought. It comes before thought in the perceptual process. This is very important for people to do that are, they say they're anal, they're analytical, they're always conceptualizing. This is very important because that stuff takes place on the tip of the iceberg. Mindfulness lets you go below the iceberg, below the, you know, what's on the rest of it type of thing. And that's why Bhante was saying a few weeks ago, if you keep meditating consistently, you expand your mindfulness and you're able to detect states of mind as they start emerging from your subconscious, and you just let it go. You start with being able to just detect the thoughts and feelings that pop up into your consciousness and not get carried away with them. But as you get stronger in this bare attention, you start realizing, oh, beneath that thought or feeling is a state of mind. Oh, I could feel it coming up you feel it coming up subconsciously. And you just let it go. That's the pre-conceptual stuff he's talking about. So you can see how powerful mindfulness is, because you become aware of yourself and what's going on internally before you get carried away with it. And if need be, you're able to put a lid on it. You're like, oh, I see that. Oh, hold on. We're not going to go that way. That's very empowering. You can't do that. You can't retain that self-control unless you're mindful and you're open to seeing, oh, that's where I'm at right now. So you can see how much self-awareness is produced by being mindful. All right. This is really good stuff. And you can see how important it is for self-control and self-mastery, because if you are not aware of what's going on inside of you, you won't be able to control it. And you got to be aware of it. You got to be mindful of it. You have to accept it into your awareness. We're going to continue this stuff next week. This is really juicy stuff. I want to make sure we have time for meditation. Okay, let us stop the sharing. Margaret?